everyone, I'm Allison.
And I'm Bryce, and we're
Better Half Reviews. And today we are looking at Paladins of the West Kingdom. It's designed by Shem Phillips and S.J. MacDonald. The art is by the Miko, and it's published by Garphill Games and Renegade Games Studios.
That's a lot. But anyway, Paladins of the West Kingdom is a worker placement game. In it, there's outsiders that are coming to invade your cities, so you're building up fortifications and outposts and confronting those outsiders. So let's see what's in the box.
Alright, let's take a look. Alright, so this is the setup of Paladins. Just to note, for space issues, we put these two boards on top of one another. They do actually connect side to side to make a really long board, but we wanted to preserve some space, so here's our setup. This is one player's board. Everybody's boards look the same. And you all start with a Paladin deck that matches the background on your board. Something we do to save time for setup is we make individual baggies of what everybody's buildings and starting money and resources are.
And in those bags we have the attribute markers, workshops, monks, garrisons, jars, coins, provision.
And that nice little scroll over there is the starting player token. Alright, so to start your turn, you grab the first 3 cards on your deck, and you're going to choose 1 card to keep, 1 card to put back on top of the deck, and 1 card to put on the bottom of your deck. So this is where the strategy comes in, and what you want to plan for, and what you want to use right now. So we'll pick this one to keep, this one to go on top, and this one to go underneath.
And this card tells us a couple pawns we're going to get, what some of our attributes are going to be, and a bonus that we get for this person, for this round.
So you put your card on top of the deck, you gain those meeples, so I get a green and a white. I just put them on top of my card. And then for that round you have +2 influence and +2 strength.
You don't actually go up on the track, you just add it to wherever you are on the track already.
And before you start a round, you need to go to the tavern deck, and there are different options available. There's always 1 more card than there are players. So in a 2-player game, there'd be 3. You get to choose which one of these you want to take for this round, and this will determine your extra workers. Different colored workers have different abilities on your board. So let's say I take this one with 2 blues and 2 whites. And so I gain 2 blue and 2 white workers. Well, for example, if I had chosen this one that has a purple meeple on it, that is a conspirator, and anytime you gain a purple meeple, you also gain a conspiracy card right over here. And that may or may not give you a reward. So this one would give me 1 money from the tax stand, and you keep this on your board. You get to do 1 action per turn, and the round ends when no one has any other meeples that they want to use. So you have lots of different spots open. Some of them are empty, so they don't have a color. You can put any color meeple there, and some of them require certain colors, like blue for trade, green for hunt, red for recruit, and so on. An example turn would be placing 2 meeples here in order to develop. But to develop, you need to turn in 4 coins, which I have. I turn the 4 coins, and now I can build a workshop. My little green building, if you notice when I picked it up, it revealed a colored worker. I get a white worker because I built a workshop. And then the workshop I can place over on the right side of the board. You see these little dotted squares? I can pick a spot, and wherever I put my workshop, that takes the place of needing a worker. So I no longer need green in order to do a commission. Now I just need any color and black. And as you build more and more workshops, different colors become available for workers, and you can also get victory points. Once I have placed my meeples and done my action, my turn is over and it goes to the next player.
Other actions you can perform are hunt, which depending on the amount of meeples you put down can give you either 1 or a total of 3 provisions. Trade, which again depending on the meeples you put down can give you 1 or 3 coins. Conspire, which lets you gain a purple meeple, so this is good for turning different colored meeples into purple, which tend to be wild and can be used as any color. You can pray with a black meeple. So if I were to place a black meeple and do the pray action and pay 2 coins, I could remove those 2 meeples off the develop and be able to use that again during this round. Normally, you're only able to use the space once because it gets full with workers. If I do a recruit action, if I put 1 meeple down, it is to discard one of the townsfolk. So the townsfolk are up here on this board. When you discard a townsfolk, you get to use the ability up in this right-hand corner. So this would be to get rid of 2 conspiracy cards. If you put 2 meeples on the recruit action, you're able to gain a townsfolk card. But when you gain a townsfolk card, you get whatever power is in the bottom here.
Now we're going to show you a little bit more about this half of the board. If you choose to do the commission, you need to have enough faith to do a commission. Since I have my workshop here, I only need the 2 workers. So I place my white and black worker.
And again, the white can be any color because this is not specific to white.
So if I place my workers there, I can take the monk piece, but there's a cost. I have to pay 1 provision. So I pay 1 provision. I can place my monk on the main board. So I can place my monk depending on what my level of faith is. My faith marker is currently at 0, so my only option is at this 0 space. It's black, it matches with the faith. So in a 2-player game, only these 2 options are available. I can place it here and earn 2 coins, or I can place it here and hire townsfolk for free. If I had a higher faith number, I could place it up here for 2, 4, 6, and on. And since I've placed that, when I move the monk away, there is a blue symbol, and that is influence. I would gain 1 influence on the tracker on my board.
So if you play the fortify card, you need influence. Up here tells you how much influence you need. And then you need to pay provision. Again, this tells you how much provisions you need to pay. So if you did fortify, you draw a wall card, place it down, you gain the reward, which tells you gain strength, and then a few meeples. If you play enough fortify cards or enough wall cards, you'll gain victory points.
The same is true with the garrisons. So you have to pay in order to build them, and they go out on the general board. They reveal the faith attribute, which will increase on your board, and the higher up you go, the more victory points that might be available at the end of the game.
Garrisons and monks are competing for the same spots on the board.
So whenever you're placing these out, you need to keep in mind what is still available, but also matches with your strength or your faith. The last 3 actions are absolve. You need a certain amount of influence that at least matches what is labeled on the jar. So your first time absolving, you don't need any influence, and you would place it on one of these areas to gain that reward.
You also need to pay a coin to be able to play that.
So the attack action lets you attack an outsider. So if you attack an outsider, you're not gaining what's down below. You are attacking, you get the immediate response, so you would earn a blue, which is influence, and 2 white meeples. And then you would discard them off to the side.
And again, to attack, you need strength that matches or exceeds the numbers here to be able to attack that outsider.
And the other action that's similar to this is actually convert. So you need enough faith in order to convert one of the outsiders over to your side. And when you convert, you would earn the reward down below. So you would go up on the strength, and then there's possible victory points at the end of the game. And finally, when you've converted them, you put them at the bottom of your player board and pay the appropriate amount of money. Part of the setup of the game is to set out the 3 order cards and the favor cards. The cards are turned over at the different rounds. So on the first round, this one is available to see. If you end the game with at least 5 of your jars played, you would get 4 victory points. And so once you finish the first round, the second round flips over this card and gives you more goals to go for in the game. These ones are different achievements for you to go for that might change your strategy. And the favor cards open up different spots for you to go to, and so on. At the end of the game, you count up all your points, and they can come from this track with the attributes, all the different buildings or monks that you've placed or jars, and also card bonuses. And whoever has the most victory points is the winner. Alright, so that's how you play the game. Let's talk about how we feel about it. Bryce, what are some of the pros?
Well, I like that there is a lot to do in this game. You have lots of places to put your workers on your personal board, on the extra cards in the middle. There's just so much you can do in this game.
And lots of colors of workers, too.
That's true.
So with that, like, I also like that the personal deck that you have kind of creates that little variety where, like, you shuffle it up, and then you draw 3 cards, and you choose one card that you want to use right then, one to put back on top of the pile, and one underneath. And so it kind of like lets you have a little bit of strategy where you're like, okay, I know this card's coming up, so I'll kind of like plan for that ahead of time. This card may not show up during the game. So it also creates a little bit of uniqueness to your game every time you play.
Definitely.
Something else I like about with the different meeples, where you're placing them and getting different structures, or like when you commission, you are working on the faith aspect, but then that faith aspect turns into influence. So it's really cool how they have those different attributes so that they kind of play off each other, and you can kind of go for different strengths or weaknesses depending on what you want to go for. Don't go for everything because it might not work out. That's what happened on my first game.
Yeah, you really want to focus on, okay, I'm going to build strength through this one, and I'm going to build faith through this one, and I'm going to build, what's the last one? Influence through this other one. These 3 different spots or whatever. You don't want to try to max out like all 6 different spots trying to do it, because it's going to be really hard to like actually focus and build.
Mm-hmm. And to have like the right commodities for everything too, because you need certain things for different types of places for your meeples to go.
But with that, no matter which ones you choose to focus on, they all seem to be viable paths to victory. I just think this game is really well balanced, that you can focus on certain things and someone else can focus on other things and still end up having great games.
And with that, like all the different paths to victory, you have those different goal cards that change from game to game. So that could influence your strategy or what you may want to go for. But I like that you don't know all the goals right at the very beginning. It gets like turned over each round still, and you kind of have to be like hopeful that you were starting for one of the goals that might come up. And those games, it's like, oh, perfect, I'm already halfway there, I got this. Or those little bonus spots that open up later on in the game. There's so many choices, so many different things. I like it a lot. So, the downside. Are there any downsides?
I think there are some big downsides with this game, even though I like it a lot.
Okay.
So the first one is that it doesn't really scale well, in my opinion. I think it plays really well at 2 players, it plays well at 3 players, but if you get more than that, I feel like the turns start taking a little bit too long.
That is true. I feel like it's probably best at 2, because the time that you take to think about or to play your turn, I've had enough time, generally, to think about what I want to do. And yeah, much higher than 3, it just gets dragged out a lot. Like, you can do it, but you need to be ready for a long game. And with that, there's analysis paralysis. I've got it bad with this game. So when I play it solo, I don't feel as bad. But yeah, I have to like think about everything. He thinks like super quick. And he's like, yeah, I've got like my next 5 turns down. And I'm like, what did I want to do?
And it's the worst when, like, I place a fortification out or something, and she was like, oh, that's what I was going to do on that exact spot.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh, great. This just means there's going to be a little bit of a wait.
But there's also, like, you don't have it too often where people are interfering with your plans necessarily. Like, sometimes, like on those garrison spots or commission spots, it can get a little bit like, especially in a lower player count because less choices are available. But it hasn't happened too much, and where we don't really get in each other's way. So there's not a lot of player communication or anything like that.
Yeah, I think the most player interaction is like when like, oh, I wanted to do that action. Okay, well, I have to do something else now.
That is true. But yeah, like the player board is very intriguing. There's a lot going on. So if you're newer to gaming, this game may feel like way too much. So, maybe if you're like newer, don't just hop into this game. It's got a lot going on. That's kind of my 2 cents for, it's not like a con, but just, don't expect to be like, yeah, I got this, because there's a lot. And lastly, I think it's just harder to get to the table because there's a lot of setup and there's just a lot of thinking that you need to do. So if it's at the end of a long day, you're probably not in the mood to play Paladins unless you're like a super fan. I mean, I love it, but if you've had a long day, you don't want to be thinking that hard and taking all that time to set up all of those little meeples because there's tons of them and they're tiny.
Well, and there's also just like, okay, now I need to set up these character cards, and then now I need to put out these things, and then get these 3 things, and now I need to put the little things here.
There's a lot of buildings to put on your board.
It's just, yeah, it's a lot of like little things to set up, put away.
Yeah. I found that if I'm able to leave it up, that is best. Because then you're like, oh yeah, sweet, I'll just play a quick game of Paladins because it's already set up. That's nice. If you have the ability to leave it set up, go for it. Then you can play a couple games and not feel too bogged down.
But with a toddler running around, yeah, it's hard to keep that up.
Yeah, we don't want to lose those little meeples. Alright, so that's what we think about Paladins of the West Kingdom. It's a very great game, very thinky game.
Yeah, despite some of the cons that we said, we do really like this game. And we really like playing it when we get the chance to. So be sure to like and subscribe. We're doing some great things over on Instagram as well, so be sure to follow us there.
Alright, I'm Allison.
And I'm Bryce, and we're Better Half Reviews.
Happy gaming!
Have fun.
Pew.